I want to get to the video I mentioned, which this is a video that's been sending around. I have it in multiple angles. I've looked at it very closely. I've been analyzing this thing like the Zapruder film, to be completely honest with you, frame by frame. Let's figure out what's going on. This is one of these NYPD white shirt officers, which we're very familiar with at this point, punching a woman, possibly knocking her out. I don't have confirmation that she lost consciousness, but watch it if you're watching this on TV, and I'll narrate, I'll explain what happens on audio as well. Okay. There may even be follow-up kicking her in the face as well. I don't know if you saw that. Let's take a look at this from a different angle, and this is a different view. Keep an eye on what's going on here. I don't know what the woman's doing beforehand, but the question I have for those who say we don't have context, is there anything she could have been doing except attempting to shoot the officer that would warrant this type of reaction? I don't know. Okay, and actually this angle's not that good. Let me see if I can rewind it to the very beginning. The first 2 seconds contain the actual punch. You have to look carefully here. Okay, and you know what?
Also, is that a woman or a man with a ponytail?
I want to also add that I don't want to. Now that I'm looking at this more closely, I don't want to play into any kind of gender stereotyping. I'm questioning
I saw some facial hair.
I'm questioning whether that was a man or a woman. I am questioning that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Let's just say a hippie and cover all boundaries.
Because that's already what's being said.
Right.
That this is all hipsters. Let's just assume it was a hipster. What are you guys seeing there? I mean, I can't imagine anything other than I was about to be shot that would warrant that type of behavior. And also, in the U.S., there's this kind of idea that, well, if the protester starts resisting arrest, then all bets are off. That line of reasoning doesn't work in a lot of other countries where people watch this show, because I'm getting emails saying, what's wrong with you guys in the U.S.? Because they resisted arrest, it's okay to punch them and throw them to the ground. So if that's what the email to me is going to be, skip the email. But what's your thought on the video?
I think that there would have to be, even if they were taunting them, saying bad things about his mother,
right?
It certainly doesn't look like it merits that sort of violent retort. We don't know if they were holding a weapon or it's hard to tell from that video. But again, it seems unlikely. And everything I've heard from the Occupy movement at this point is they're really trying to be strict about how to deal with the police in a nonviolent way. And there are actually things you can learn about nonviolent resistance that would preclude you from doing anything threatening that would levy a punch in your face.
We had a video last week of a guy who was clearly doing the epitome of the nonviolent protest, which is just standing there with absolutely just no, letting the police move you wherever you need to go. And I remember it, a red-jacketed police or out-of-uniform police officer took the guy and slammed him down, caused a concussion. Again, I got emails saying, well, you don't know what happened in the minute before that. Fine, but at the time, the guy's standing there limp like a noodle, and he's getting slammed down on the ground. So what do you think of that, Natan? You were one of these people, actually, not random audience members. You were saying we don't know what the context is. What do you think of that one?
Well, all I was saying is that there are many videos that we know of from other countries and from this country where it is the case that when you find out the proper context, somehow it's completely inversed, like who the blame should go to. There was one case in Israel in the Gaza Strip where there was a famous case of an Israeli soldier, and the picture showed him punching a Palestinian, and it turns out he was actually helping him. And so it was like the exact opposite of what people thought.
It does happen.
He had a mosquito on his face. And
right.
Punching
the woman or man had a mosquito on their face, so they had to punch it off. I mean, I don't know.
It appeared that he was punching him is the point. But the point that I'm making is that, we don't know what the context is. I agree that the police is probably, like Monty said, there's probably a little of both. There's probably some context that explains some of these cases, and in other cases, the police is probably going overboard. I mean,
arbitrarily macing different people that are part of the Occupy movement seems to never be a good idea.
Like people that are already sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
Doing nothing. The other interesting thing that's going on is a bunch of people were arrested at Citibank for going in together to close their accounts. And it's reminiscent of, I know it's so cliche to say it's reminiscent of 1984. And I hate even saying it, so I'm not going to. I'm going to only indicate I'm not talking about that. But it's a very weird video.
Don't think of an elephant.
That I find to be compelling. This is a woman in a business suit trying to close a bank account, being carried out by police. It makes no
There's
sense.
the number. I called them. They know that this is happening. Give her all of your names. Give her all of your names. And I will
You were inside. You were inside with everybody else.
I'm a customer.
You were inside.
I'm a
Yes,
customer.
but you were inside
I'm a
the whole
customer.
time. No.
What are you doing?
What the? Hey!
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't be documented right now.
Okay, and then what happens is a huge crowd of people actually picks her up and carries her who knows where, multiple police officers. So according to reports, what happened here is that the question was whether or not she was part of the protest of closing this bulk account closing that led to the arrest. And even though she had a right to be in there, is the idea. She holds up her checkbook. She's a customer of the bank. She was one of 24 that was arrested at a Citibank branch. So I know that we could look into this and say, well, the manager asked them to leave and they insisted on closing their accounts. So they were arrested because at that point they were technically trespassing. I just have a hard time saying that if you go to a bank to close your account and you're told we can't do it right now, you have to leave, all of a sudden you're trespassing and it warrants an arrest. Even if it meets the letter of the law, I have trouble with it.
I'm going to go and take the opposite end of the spectrum here and say, yes, she went in there and tried to close the account, but it was lunch, and they asked her to come back and do it later, and she didn't maybe, and she stayed in the branch, and she wouldn't move, so they had her removed.
At my bank, there's never anyone available when I go in and want to do something. It's kind of one of the main things at big banks, like the one that I have, but hopefully soon will no longer be a client of. So when there's nobody there to help me, they say you just sit and wait for that person to show up. It just seems like they didn't like all these people coming in at once to close accounts. There were cameras around. It was becoming a stunt. So they said, you all have to leave. Does that immediately make them criminals? I don't know. I just have trouble with that.
It seems like they're on private property, so if they ask them to leave and they don't leave, that there would be justification to arrest them. That being said, if the big corporate banks want to make life easier for themselves and the police, knowing that there are a lot of people trying to mass close accounts right now, they may want to put a feature on their ATMs outside their building so that people could drive through, hit cancel account, and then it'd be done.
No,
really
you know what
quickly.
they should do? They should charge a $50 account closing fee. That's
They probably
really
already do.
That's the way to. Well, I know that if you have a negative balance with some bank accounts, you actually can't close the account, and you continue to accrue overdraft fees, even though you've attempted to close that account. You know, we don't need to get into the logistics of bank policy here, but I think that you're right. Maybe there would be some way to expedite this account closing that would preclude groups of people coming in to very boisterously close accounts.
That being said, part of the point is to get arrested at these banks because they're trying to prove a point. We're now talking about this on television because they proved their point, which is they're closing banks and that people are going to arrest them for that.
You're right.
I just love in these videos when immediately when a person gets touched by a security guard or a cop, they start screaming wildly,
Yeah.
as if they're being raped.
Never helpful.
No.
Don't scream.
It
Cooler
doesn't.
heads prevail.